Hey everybody. I saw a lot of hands go up in Jason's talk for people that have never come to a BSides event before. So I will be as gentle as possible. One quick thing about BSides is I really like the community and the people who come to BSides events, people who give up their Saturdays and weekends for InfoSec. I feel it's a real good culture and a good point for learning. One quick thing is that this is a green track talk. I've never done a green track talk before, so that's a first for both of us. I changed the slides, and this is the first time I presented this talk at all. So, like Jason, it will be a little bit of trial and error as we go. I have a red track version, but that's not what this one is. So, without any further ado, who am I? Well, as you can see from your brochure, my name is Frank, and I have a little bit of a sense of humor here, so I'm not going to be as dry. And I'm currently Director of Web Application Security, Research, and Subject Matter Expert for Qualys. I'm a lot older than I look. My oldest daughter, is turning 20. So if that gives you any idea. I've been doing this for a very long time, mostly focused in application security now. You know, I like to build things. I'm really good at breaking things. I am a farmer, legitimately own and work a farm as well. So I tweet about that and outdoors and anything related. Yeah, so I'll admit that I have a Kubota, so I don't have it's been hacked a few times for different methods. One of the hydraulics in the front's been hacked together to exceed the weight limit for the bucket, but little things like that, you know. One quick thing about what this talk will be, again, it really is a green talk version. I've never done a green talk, but I've always wanted to. So if anyone has any questions, just feel free to really, just interrupt me at any time and ask, and I can clarify anything that we need to go. It will stay AppSec-centric. It won't contain any questionable language today, because we have children in the room, which I always welcome, so we can scratch that out, and I'll do my best. The content's been sanitized. There's one vulnerability that I'll be showing that has not been patched. So I won't discuss the details of that because I'm ethically, I don't feel like disclosing the vulnerability. But we'll get to that. I'll give you some of my opinions, but the main gist of this is to be an intro to application security, to basically show you that even though sometimes the best intentions and thought processes are put into developing or integrating security into your web application, that sometimes just that's not enough. And I'm trying to help you avoid some of the same mistakes. Real quick disclaimer, nothing I'm showing you has any affiliation or association endorsement with our company, Qualys. This is mostly 100% my research. Anything that has to do with any of our clientele or anything like that is not included in this talk. Anything that I did through here was either independent through BugCrowd, HackerOne, or something of the sort. And I won't show any exploits. If you do follow my Twitter, be warned, they're not always perfect for someone her size. But it's my personal account. So, without further ado, if someone ever asks or really wants a general idea of what application security or web application security consists of and why it's difficult to make web applications secure, we first have to look at a general tired definition that may have varied over the years. But you're essentially wanting to secure code that is a web application. You're also securing any back-end systems or third-party libraries that you reference or use in your code. Securing all the servers and configurations of that code. Your code and all web browsers are essentially a perimeter. So your code is a perimeter, but not only that, your web security from browser point of view is also your edge. So what people don't understand there too is that that's also a perimeter. It's really hard to secure all of these moving parts because the code's changing. And I tell people all the time, one thing that you have to remember is that developers might have to write millions and millions of lines of code across huge multiple development environments. It could be outsourced, it could be in-house, it could be different parts of code that's been written in India, in the United States, in Japan. Like, all of this code comes together, millions of lines of code. All I have to do is break one of those lines of code, right? So all I have to do is find one bad mistake out of these millions of lines of code from all these different people. So it's really difficult. But why is it important? The main reason why I think it's important is because how many people in here do business with a company strictly online? Like, you have no relationship with the business whatsoever except for an online presence. I'm going to guess everybody has at least, anyone that's used eBay or Amazon or something like that, or your bank, right? I rarely ever walk into my bank. Most of my stuff's done online. I mean, granted, you have to go in sometimes, but you know, if you have Ally Bank or your insurance company, how many people walk in their insurance companies, or if you don't work there? Yeah. So, I mean, but there's a lot of companies out there, and your sole relationship is through the web, and it's your front line, it's your image, it's your business. One thing, too, that makes web application security difficult is that web applications are constantly changing. There's constantly code updates, there's constantly new vulnerabilities being found, there's constantly new release cycles and information, and it's pretty much dynamic. Your web applications are essentially always up, and those are basically your uptime for your external and your internal sites is pretty much your goal is at 100%. So when those sites are up and accessible, they're being hit all the time, whether you know it or not, or, you know, hey, we can't scan our web servers because this and that. Well, I promise you that your web servers are getting hit constantly, regardless, 24 hours a day. And as those new vulnerabilities, attacks, and exploits are found, so your code may be secure today, and then tomorrow an exploit's published that you don't have time to patch, you're vulnerable. And hackers are going to take advantage of that. So some real quick statistics. Again, trying to keep this as green focused as I can. Some real quick statistics. 5 out of 6 companies have been the victim of cyber attacks. And that's basically the data from the Symantec report for 2014. 30 websites are approximately hacked every day to distribute malware only. So a lot of things, what we're seeing now is that, you know, the days of defacement, I mean, DDoS always still a problem. But let's say that I can compromise a huge traffic site like Yahoo or something like that nature. I definitely don't want anyone to know. Maybe all I'll do is hide a pop-up that comes up and distributes malware for my botnet or something like that. So that's a huge, you know, those warning flags are gone, right? There's a lot of that monitoring for, oh, we got hacked because our website's down. Someone left a you've been owned thing. Yeah. If someone gets access to a site that has some good material on it, or has high traffic, or has high visibility for your business, let's say you're a bank or an insurance company or something like that, healthcare, you're obviously going to get, you know, the malware that's on there then is going to be able to infect your customers, right? So it's just another kind of angle. Second to last slide here. These are some out of the DBIR from 2015. These are some 2014 important breaches. Most of these had a web facet to it, right? So, I mean, we're talking millions and millions of records and everything that gets affected from these. Now, we do have some point of sale and things like that, but these are important breaches that can be tied in. And that's just 1 year. So it's not, I don't see it really getting better. It's kind of getting worse, so we need to understand. Attackers are moving faster. Defenses are slowing down. You know, techniques are becoming streamlined. And a lot of things, what we're seeing too, is a lot of smaller and medium-sized businesses are getting attacked. You know, the days of why would anyone want my stuff? I own an HVAC company is over. As we know, an HVAC company may have a large client, right? So now you're a target. You know, we have different kind of evolution of attacks, right? So last year, 60% of all targeted attacks stuck small and medium-sized businesses. So the majority of attacks that were documented last year were not against your large enterprises. That's a shift. So I think that shift is probably for a few different reasons. So being in a large-scale enterprise, there's a lot of different security in place already. I'm not saying that everything's perfect, but I'm saying that small and medium business may not have the personnel or the response teams or the time or the focus to really put into security. And, you know, owning a small business, I can't say I blame them because they're trying to keep their business open and put food on the table and that kind of thing. But it's a statistic that's worth noting. Great. So, sometimes all of this security that is basically put into these websites or web application looks really good. It has controls. It has everything in place so you can't break it. Let's say that there's two-factor authentication. There's automatically logging you out after X amount of hours or minutes. You have to, fill in multiple forms, prove you're not a robot, do X, do Y, do Z to be able to authenticate and all that great stuff. It has a great little green padlock. Everything's safe, right? Intentions may have been good most of the time, but sometimes stuff happens. It happens. So, one quick example that I'll give here is an online shopping example. I've sanitized the slide. If you recognize the store, it's up to you, but it is what it is. This is something that I found personally. I was buying an item for myself from a large retailer, and I went to look up. I wanted to know, I didn't get an email confirmation for my order. And usually businesses are pretty good about that. You set an order and within an hour you get a notification. So I wanted to look up my order, and I didn't have the order number yet. So I went to the site and I looked at what the criteria were for looking up an order. Well, I didn't have an account, so I didn't sign up to say, okay, yes, create an account for me, because I get enough spam email, so I don't really care. So what I did was I looked, and what you needed were 3 different pieces of material to be able to get your order status. Or it was 3 or 4. I have the slides. So you needed your order number, which is a long string of unique numbers, or you think. An order number, you needed your zip code, your last name, and I think an email address or something. So it looked pretty good. Like it looked like you needed to know what was there. Here's the problem that we'll get into. I did eventually get the email with the order number. But when I did so, I just typed in the order number and I hit go. Come on, show me where my stuff is, right? Because it should have shipped already. And what I found was that you needed to fill out all items, like mandatory field, stop. You can't get your orders. You can't get your order without filling in your order number, your zip code, your last name, all of this fun stuff. So if you wanted to try to look up someone else's order, it'd be pretty difficult. The people did a really good job in the design of the site, saying that just because you have an order number, I'm not giving it to you. You need to know all these three things have to match. The order number has to match the email address, has to match the last name and the zip code. Everything has to match to be able to look up the order. I thought it was great. However, there's always a bypass, right? So there's always something there. And I just got curious. So what I did was I started playing with the mechanisms. I did this through Burp. I did a few different things to kind of look at what was being sent and what was being, what the response was. And then I tried a little bit of a manipulation. So the first thing I want to show you here, and I hope that you can see that, I hope I blocked out where this was. Anyway, so I did, right? You don't know where that is. Okay. Okay, great. Okay. So you needed all of these things. Order number. Now, we're not even telling you how many digits the order number is. So if you don't place a legitimate order, your order number could be 1 digit, Could be 11 digits. We don't know. But you need all of these things. Not 1, not 2, not 3. You need all of them to get the information. So real quick, I'm going to show you my order, my email. And I hope you can see the screen. Okay, here's the order number, right? Can anybody here see something wrong with the order number in my order? I didn't sanitize this except for the name. This is my email. I took my email address out, but this is it. Anyone see anything? The date. What about the date? The date is the order number, essentially, right? So look at the date up there, right? November 2nd, 2015. November 2nd, 2015, right? This is just the time the order was placed. That's all it was. It was the time. Now, who cares? I have an order number. Now, it's a large site, so a lot of people place a lot of orders. But they don't put any unique identifiers. It's only a date. That's it, a date and a time. But I still need a last name and an address, or a last name and a zip code. So how am I going to know that you placed an order? I might be able to guess a random order number, right? Sure, I can guess a random order number because it's a large site, probably a high volume of orders. But I'm not going to know your last name or your zip code. So it's pretty good. Now, I could try brute force, but I'm not going to brute force somebody like this because I don't want to get in trouble maybe, all right? So let's say I'm super ethical today, which I usually am. So this is me, this is my order. So I go in and I put in the order. And I don't fill in anything else, and I hit continue, and it basically says, no, you have to put in your zip code or last name or something like that. Okay. So that's wonderful. So I put it in, and this is what I get. This is what my freight, taxes, all this fun stuff. This was my order. This was a Christmas gift. All right. So I have this order here. Now, here's what I'd like you to look at. You see that URL up there? Take a look at the URL. It says order number and zip code equals and last name equals. So it's checking all of that, right? And it all has to match, right? No. Guess what there you go. What's the only thing you need for that to spit back the data? That's it. There is absolutely nothing done on this site whatsoever except for an order number. That's it. If you have an order number, and let's say that I have a simple script that I wrote in my super uber programming skills of Python, which basically just spits thousands of order numbers at this. What do I get? Well, let's find out. Everything. And I did. I got it all. So all I did was change that, and I got everybody's order name, I got their last name, I got their zip code, I got their orders. What could I do with that? I didn't go any further. I could have. Let's think about what you can do with that. Now I know this person's last name. I know where they live. I know their zip code. I can probably find out who they are easy enough. So I essentially have all this data. Now, this is something that looks really secure. This is my Mirage. This is what we deal with every day in application security. These people that developed this application that really wanted to be secure, they did a real good job of having multiple things. Like, we can't just let someone enter an order number. All this stuff has to match. All this stuff needs to be there. We need to prove who you are. And I'm really happy that they did it, but they didn't follow through. Did anybody pen test this application before it went live? No. Because I will tell you that my daughter could probably find this on a pen test. And my 10-year-old, not the older one. So this is something that can probably be found very easily. This was not tested. Now, kudos to the company. I will say that when I disclosed this, they fixed this within 7 days. Not 7 business days, 7 days, production environment across everything, it was fixed. To me, that's a win. Change control at a large company, fixing production applications without downtime, maintenance windows, nothing that I saw went down. They fixed this within 7 days, it was done. They said, thank you, yay, it's a bug. And that was it. So as you mentioned, yes, just the order number, all that was needed. All right, example 2, email. So email's email, right? Everyone kind of takes it for granted. But let's think about 1 second. What do you have in your email box? Like in all of your folders or your emails? Is there valuable stuff in there that can basically let me take anything I want from you? Or a bad person? Yes. I mean, it's in your email. There's something in your email box that can compromise you in some way. If it's your primary email address. So it's not exciting, but it's definitely personal. So another kind of Enigma, right? Another Mirage of security, right? So we have an A, public health on the window here, but we have a cockroach crawling on it. So we got an A. Let's not pay attention here. We don't need that. That's all right. All right. So this one, very much. I have friends who work this security team. People that I used to work with, personal friends. This is something that I said I was going to disclose, so this is not anything confidential. My good friends at Yahoo. So let's take a look at that URL. We don't really have a whole lot of information in there. Just a reference. Looks like some kind of single page reference to an action, right? There's probably, it's just referencing the number. And that number probably ties back to the email. Nothing good here. This is kind of boring. But what does it say? Sorry, your session has expired. To protect your account, you'll need to sign in again. Will I need to sign in again? Did it log me out, do you think? They didn't do anything. So that kind of let me set up Burp in a proxy mode. And I let it sit. And I let it sit, and I let it sit until this popped up, and then I wanted to see what it did. And so I saw something interesting there. It really didn't do anything except for load that box. Nothing. Did 0. Just loaded that box. And then what I did was I said, okay, I know that I can just disregard this message, just clear that line out, type mail.yahoo.com, hit enter, and it goes right to my inbox. Minor thing. They didn't terminate the session when they said they did. Not a big deal. I also found that during this time period, when you actually clicked sign out, when I was actually left Burp running, I looked and it never terminated the session after I logged out and went back to the home page after you hit sign out. I disclosed this to Yahoo. What Yahoo said was that this was limited to just the grouping or the cluster or whatever my one account was on, and it was fixed and they knew about it and all that fun stuff. And it was fixed pretty quickly. What could have happened if everybody who signed out of that email account, now I don't know whether it was 5 accounts affected or 5 billion accounts affected, I don't know. But what could have happened if basically you went to any machine that you've ever checked email, just typed in mail.yahoo.com, hit enter, and got the last person's email that was on there? There's a little bit of a risk there. Again, this is a really good feature. If someone leaves something up, they should automatically sign you out, right? But you need to terminate the session. And they didn't terminate the session. They didn't do anything. And this was disclosed. Now again, and I use this kind of talk to just some generalities. This was designed to give you protection. But it's false. It doesn't do anything. And I think that that's wrong to do. And that's one thing that if you're going to do with web application security, if you're going to go to all this trouble to do this, terminate the session. Protect your users like they expect. Go ahead. Yep.
Where they don't terminate the session on the server side.
Yep.
They set a new cookie on the browser side, and people don't realize
part of the problem there is that you're telling me that every user that needs to sign out then has to clear all their cookies in cache to make sure that no one can grab the cookie that they had before. So your point exactly, you need to get rid of that cookie. I'll come back to that because there's something I'm going to mention at the end of the talk about CSurf. But yeah, we'll get back to that one because there's some cool stuff that I'm doing there. But we'll continue on here. So as you can see here, all I did was type mail.yahoo.com, hit enter, boom, right to my inbox. Nothing was actually terminated. Oh, random, random. That's good, right? Well, that's a whole nother discussion. But, all right, example 3. This one is not patched. This one I will show you what it is. I will not tell you how I did it. Now, one thing I do want to say is I have a huge amount of respect for this next company. This is a company that I work with closely. There's some really good individuals that work there that contribute a lot to security and the community and to everybody. And there's a lot of love-hate. It's Google. So there's a lot of good people that are working there that are doing good things. You know, this is just something that they decided that they weren't going to fix. I'm not releasing this yet because I think that there's still a vector I can use that I want to make sure that is not possible because I think that they're going to end up fixing it. But anyway. So I don't know what Google spends to make a security feature. You know, let's think about it. How many salaries or lines of code or anything that it takes to create one security feature, either in Gmail or Calendar or their apps or so. I don't know what it costs them. Thousands, hundreds of thousands, whatever. But they're putting a lot of money into it. And I told them, and they basically said, yeah, I understand that you can get around our security that we put in place, but we don't really care. We're not going to fix it. Because I couldn't supply them with a real vector. So I couldn't supply them with an attack method that would take advantage and compromise one of their end users in effect that they couldn't take their PII at all, right? So there's nothing personal that I could get from a user with this attack because I don't have the vector for the method of attack. And I'm still working on it, and I think I can figure something out, but anyway. So this started, does anyone in here know Johnny Christmas? All right, so this one here started with an IRC chat I was on with Johnny. And I was looking for an old SQL injection program, Windows-based SQL injection program from probably like a decade ago. And I was doing this was part of something that I wanted to show for OWASP. It was basically a training for simplified SQL injection. And so I asked Johnny and a bunch of other people for this particular file. And Johnny said to me, I have the file, but it's infected with malware. I'm just letting you know. If you don't care, I'll give you the file. I'm going to spin up a VM for this. I really don't care. Send me whatever you want. So he said, try to send it to me. I don't do DCC send, so I didn't do that. So he just threw it up on Google Drive. Here it is. You want it. You can have it. Thanks, Johnny. No problem. I went to grab it. And it said, the file you are trying to download is infected. You cannot download this file. Google did a good job. It doesn't let me download a file that's infected with no malware. That's a win, right? That's good. That's good for everybody. But I didn't want to keep bugging him because he was traveling or doing something. And, I thought it was nice that he supplied me the file to begin with. So what I did was look for a way to get around that. The only way you can get around that with Google Drive is if you're the owner of the file. If you are the owner, the person who uploaded or created that directory, that file, you can download the malware file. They don't care. But only the owner. Now I said, is this just me? Is there something with my Google Drive? Whatever. Can I do something to get around that? So I did some research. I got an official response from Google, and this was, that's her right there on the Google Drive help forum. Essentially, it's false as a false positive. These are be clean, blah, blah, blah. This was not me. This was someone else. No. The point is that they have a safety measure, and this is her from Google. Thank you for posting your patients. It looks like the file was, in fact, infected by a virus. I'm going to send you information privately. only the owner of such file for his personal use is allowed to download the file, is not allowed to share infected files. Cheer, Abby. Abby works at Google, official. So now I knew that what I found was going against what they said was their official policy. So I found a way to bypass that, and I was able to download the infected file, not being the owner, fully bypassed this control, and I submitted it to security at Google. Thanks for the report. We feel that this issue poses very little practical risk, so we're not going to track this one as a security bug. I know people that work there, so I got their kind of take on it. And they said, the only reason that we're saying this is because, yes, you defeated one of our controls, but you're knowingly downloading an infected file. Even though you're not the owner, great, you bypassed that control, but you know it's infected. So can you trick a user into doing something? Show us an attack vector, all right? And once I can give them a viable vector, they're going to fix it. But what I basically said was, you know, you care enough only to allow the owner of the file to download it's infected. I found a way around a security measure that is equal or greater concern. It's a legitimate risk. It's a bug. I'll publish in 90 days. And they basically said, thanks for the 90 days, heads up. And I took out what they said next because that's what I'm working on. And, you know, we, bring this up in the Google Drive thing. And I'm like, you know what? This brings me to my next topic that I like to talk about for this talk, and that's bug bounties. If you're going to run a legitimate disclosure and bug bounty program, you got to do it the right way. I'm not saying that this is legitimate or not, right? So all I'm saying is that they cared enough to spend money on a security feature. I bypassed said security feature. They said, it's great, but you can't infect any users knowingly. The users are going to know they're downloading a file, even if you bypass our security measure. It's one of those things. I have my opinions on it, right? If you're going to spend the money and the time to make a security feature and I can get around it, fix it. I'm sure they could fix it. They still haven't, but I'm sure they could. And this one I won't disclose yet, but I may be disclosing this one as part of another talk, depending on how and if they fix it, or if I can get an attack vector. But it does still exist, so that's another one where it's my last kind of Enigma or Mirage, right? So it's this false sense of security having this feature that doesn't let you download an infected file, and we're Google, we're great, we're only going to let the owner and download it, but I can just show you that it's bull. It's plain false. I can download and I can bypass your controls. You did a lot of good work in protecting your users, but I found a way around it. Make sure that people do manual testing. Have not tried that yet. I know that infected file that I don't own, that Johnny Christmas owns that file on his personal Google Drive. He's the owner. I know that I can download it even though it's infected, even though I had to do some trickery to do it, because normally when I tried to do it, it says you're not the owner, it's infected. But I have not tried that. There's a couple other vectors I was looking with spoofing some other stuff. So, did anyone ever read the JavaScript for Kids books? No Starch Press has a JavaScript for Kids. And in that book, I know it's convoluted here, we're going off track, but I'll get back. So in the book is a section of having your child learn how to write a hangman game in JavaScript. So as part of one of my Red Team talks, I basically wrote this hangman game from the JavaScript for Kids book. I registered a domain for $5 or something that related to hangmanonlinegame.org or something like that. Put in a huge amount of meta tags in the page. Next thing I know, you type it in hangman into Google, you're getting on that first page, and basically spoofed you want to play your online game, sign into through Gmail, and get into your online hangman game, getting Gmail credentials, etc. I was using that same type of methodology of spoofing that page and forwarding, right? So then this person never knew that they weren't logging in or anything and they can play the game. But I was using that same type of thought in saying, what if I can make it not appear infected and trick the user into downloading the file from a page that appears to be, you know, that warning that says, there's a warning at the top that this file is whatever. If I can somehow automate the process to be able to click the link and then just get the file. That's the part that I'm having trouble with. I haven't been able to automate anything. Now, as far as what you said with replacing the file, I have not tried that. That's another good idea. The only thing I run short of in my life is time. So, you know, that's one thing that I would do. I would like to try to spoof or automate that to be able to download that file. I just haven't been able to do it. And I think once I can prove that that's a real risk, that I'll be able to get that acknowledged and fixed. But, you know, there's also things you can do. I have a couple ideas, but no, I have not tried that, but that's another good idea. All right, this brings me to my next topic here, and that's bug bounties. I do not have official license to use Clint Eastwood, but it's there, so. The good, the bad, and the ugly. I'm going to do it in reverse order because most of what I believe in bug bounties is positive. There's a lot of positive. I have some examples that I'll show that are not positive, but for the most part, I think that they can be positive. So, don't do this. This is one of my many, many examples and my frustrations. But let's just glance at the slide real quick. And I reported a bug to this customer. That's a customer of, and I have to black that out. But let's look real quick, right? So what's the date I submitted that bug? December 19th, I submitted the bug. How long do you think that someone should take to get back to you with a bug that's legitimate? Let's think for the sake of argument that this is a real bug that I could publish out there if I wanted to. Now, they have a bug bounty program. It's being managed. This is a HackerOne submission, right? It's a managed bug bounty or not, it's not managed by them, but it's through HackerOne. What do you think a normal response should be? Acknowledgement. Okay. Social experiment, guys. I'm friends with Katie, who is at HackerOne, and I reached out to her and I said, I submitted a bug and I'm not getting any feedback. What's up? And she says, well, this is a program that we only it goes through us, but we don't have access to the bug and we don't manage the program. It's them. I can shoot them an email and ping them or whatever. And I said, okay, go ahead. And then I just left it. So my first acknowledgement came on this date. September 16th. That's the first acknowledgement I got from that bug. I was nice. I'll be 100% honest with you. I forgot. December 19th. Nope. December 19th. I submitted the bug. I actually submitted two with one site. And it's a very large database company. And it's not Oracle. So, I submitted the bug, and I submitted it in December. I gave Katie crap about it at ShmooCon, so when was that? Mid-January? So it was already a month. Yeah, first acknowledgement. Hey, it's a duplicate. We're already working on it. Thank you. Okay, well, you're already working on it. It's a duplicate. A duplicate to when? Now, did I submit this in December as a duplicate? Or is it, hey, we found this? This was crap. I publicly kind of lambasted them about this. And, I mean, I got my hand smacked a little bit because of, it's just where I work and stuff like that. But it's not how you do a bug bounty program. I'm nice and I'm ethical and I'm not going to drop stuff on the internet. But there are a lot of people who will. And if you're going to run a bug bounty program and not get back to someone from December to September, and there's a legitimate bug on your website, you can consider it published, right? If it's not myself or maybe some of you. But there's a lot of people who are not going to put up with that. As soon as you open up a bug bounty program, you have a responsibility. The responsibility goes both ways. It goes from the researcher to the company, but it also has to be reciprocated back. And I'm saying this in this talk today because, I think there's a lot of positives. I love bug bounty programs for the most part, but things like this give them a bad name. And this can't happen. So, the good. I've worked with these 3 companies, this Cobalt.io, BugCrowd, and HackerOne, all have really good people that work there. They all have genuine people who want to help, who know what they're doing, and have really good teams. Some really good friends at BugCrowd, their internal team, second to none, as far as triage, verification, those kind of things. If anyone knows Jason Haddix or any of the work that he's done, this is a really good idea. Now, it doesn't have to be assisted through BugCrowd or HackerOne or Cobalt or whoever. It could be a private one that you do your own. But you have to have the resources. Now, and I'm going to get to that on the next slide, but you have to have the resources. So Apple runs a really good bug program, but they do it themselves, but they have a great security team to do it. Do you have that kind of time and resources? If you don't, you might want to use the managed type of service like these. But, so, again, this is just my opinion and what I've seen. Opinions, what they say about them. But this is what I've seen out there for the most part with bug bounties are positives. I think that they provide bang for the buck in finding real vulnerabilities. That first example I gave you, how long do you think that would have sat out there with a bug bounty program? 30 seconds? 15 minutes? I don't know. But there's no way that would have ever been out there. I didn't do anything with it. I think that bug bounties pretty much show the results, and they're flexible on your scope. And I think that once you put that scope out there in the public and say, this is the scope for the bug bounty, stay within it, I don't know that there's a whole lot I think there's enough respect there both ways that if you're running a bug bounty program the right way, that's going to be effective. You look at companies like Tesla and things like that, and their scope's a star. They're like, anything even affiliated with us, go for it. Then you have other companies that have kind of fat client type of setups, and they're like, don't touch our stuff. You can download a copy of our software or our program, beat it up. If you find something, then tell us, but please don't hit our web stuff. And it really works. I've seen pretty good results. But here's some main considerations that I mentioned earlier. If you're going to set one up yourself, make sure your scope is properly defined. Now, these things, having the staff, time and dedication and communication, disclosure processes, etc., back to the researchers is extremely important. What that company did to me from December to September soured me pretty bad. I'm not one to do anything malicious, but stuff like that is what makes you kind of pop up and get stuff published against you. And we don't want to do that. We want to try to better security. And I think that bug bounty programs, for the most part, if you can address these, do exactly that. And that's kind of my main feel. But a lot of the time and scope considerations here are, the time it takes to triage those false positives and false negatives. If you're going to do that yourself, don't take that for granted. The communication with the researchers has to be key. Disclosure. How are you going to disclose those vulnerabilities? Are you going to say, if we find a valid vulnerability, we're going to disclose it, or we're not going to disclose it? Make that stuff known to your researchers and also as part of your program. Make sure you have the accessibility and the resources. Accessibility there is that I had a friend of mine who wanted to open a bug bounty program for their company, and their company essentially writes educational web-based software. But they don't have a externally accessible presence for that software they write. They write it as it's an in-house solution where they write it, they put it in on a server internally at an EDU or something, And then everybody on campus accesses that, but it's all internal only, nothing faces out, that kind of stuff. So he was having trouble setting up that kind of environment where they do a frequent amount of changes. He was having trouble setting up that environment to external resources to be able to hit that they wanted, like they didn't want a lot of their things public. You know, it's a smaller company and that kind of stuff. So they opted to do put more of their efforts on internal pen testing rather than the bug bounty program, and it was the right call for them. So again, I think that's what I wanted to kind of mention there. So I'm going to kind of spin this a little the other way, and I want to help kind of bring some transparency to what can be done. And again, this is a green talk, so I really want to assist anybody with web application security. So one of the things that I see done too often is that we kind of shame developers or dump bugs on them, kind of look at them and say, your code sucks, what the hell is this, right? So why should you be doing that, right? The number one thing we have to look is that, you know, we have to work with and train the developers. Developers that I've worked with, and I know Tim's worked with in the past, have been really open and interested in wanting to know more and more about being secure. They don't want to write bugs in their software. They just don't really know. Most of them don't know. Their main job's to write code, get a product out, and do their job. Their job essentially is to get software written that's usable. So working with and training developers is going to be like the number one thing that I can recommend for layer of application security. Obviously leveraging the OWASP top 10, but to go back to the developers and enabling the developers to bake security into your SDLC processes. I have another talk that I've done at InfoSec that was essentially how to integrate security into your SDLCs. And you know, not every SDLC process is the same. They're all different. But how to bake that in and what methods have been tried and what methods that I've seen successful, and kind of, you know, put security as part of the plan before a line of code's developed. Have some kind of discussion, ownership, and that kind of thing, working with the developers, and let the developers actually look for bugs and understand what they're doing as they go, instead of 6 months later going to them and saying, here's a pile of vulnerabilities in your code, fix it. That's not the way it's done. These guys write, I mean, they may not remember what they did 6 months ago. There could have been a team of people writing it. Let them kind of test as they go to be able to find those things and fix them and improve their code as they're learning. And that's...
I got a question for you, though. In this, when you start looking at the OWASP top 10 or the 25% about coding, you're talking about training, how do you break that down? Because what we're looking at is, you know, we've got a huge set of controls, a huge set of training. It's great for us to align with external standards. Like, for us in insurance, NAIC says we will use this. This is how we align this up. Our partners may say we will use ISO or what have you. But we find that as we go through development teams, particularly when we're bringing people in who have a year, 2 years, in the ability to arrange the content we give them, get them to a place to mature their development so that it does make security in, that's a huge upfront cost for us.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of heavy lifting to get that because we're just not finding it. I don't know if you've seen that or anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So part of the problem is that it's not a one size fits all. I mean, it may not fit your business. It's exactly, I mean, you're saying that you have somebody who's in there for a 1-year contract. You're gonna,
I'm saying we just hire somebody out of college, maybe 2 or 3
oh.
years, and how do you make them to get them to that point? Because what we're finding is we're having to build our own custom process of putting it into the SDLC.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's usually what's, go ahead.
So one of the things that we do in our program, not our bug bounty program, but in our SDL, is that every time we find a security vulnerability on our team and we tag that in Jira for remediation or something, we include the CSV comes in, top 25, link to that, and we sit down with the developer. Again, it comes down to time to
No, that's fine. I know the time we got. I'll stop you. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So there's a silver bullet from what you're asking. I think what you were also. I'm also a trainer. Good job, trainer. I actually have a question.
Sure.
You have a lot of opinions on bug bounty programs.
I do.
All the opinions, and I have some opinions on bug bounty programs too. What do you think about internal bug bounty programs? We're really considering. I know where this is going, right? We're wrapping some rules around ours to prevent pollution, right? Or we hope anyway to prevent pollution. Because we think we have a good group of people who want to do the right thing, right? We're going to see how that goes. But have you ever seen an internal bug bounty program be successful? Have you ever seen it result in flipping that incentive structure, right? Because anyone who's read economics, I don't want to get into all that, but like everything's about incentives, right? And the developer's incentives are to make their product manager happy, and their product manager's incentives are to build features into the application, and that's pretty much it. So in order to flip that, in order to get people to care about security all the time, you have to flip that incentive structure sometimes and make people incentivize to care about it. Have you ever seen that be successful inside an organization?
I think it can be. I think that I have not seen a lot of that flipping actually happening. I'd like to actually see it more to be able to get some data out of that. I think it can be effective. But let's go back to the bad luck thing, right? So there's a Dilbert comic that I tweeted out from 1995 that basically said, it's the boss saying, we're going to pay you for every bug that you find. And the guy is happy, runs back to his cube, and he says, I'm coding a new minivan, right? So, I mean, if it's done right, I think it can happen, but I haven't seen a lot of data as far as people running the internal programs, but I'd like to see it. I think it can be something that worked. Yeah. Well, red team, blue team exercises in large financial institutions, I've seen that work. So there were no real incentives per se. I've seen red team and blue teams function in very large financial institutions, your giant world banks that kind of battle against each other. I've seen that actually produce positive results. Now, when we add incentives in there, I think it can work. I just haven't really seen a lot of data with that yet. So as time is ticking down here, I'm real quick, as I mentioned, one size doesn't fit all. You have to find what works for you. Obviously, the buy-in from senior leadership is necessary. Integrating processes. Train, work with, and involve developers at every stage. I've seen that be completely the most successful. If anyone's ever listened to a talk by Bill Semp or Jim Manico, this. Okay? Every time you involve a developer or help a developer, you're going to help yourself at the end of the day, depending on what your role is. Report metrics. This is huge for this, right? You want that buy-in year after year to continue your programs. Report metrics. If you suck at something at first, let everybody know you did a bad job and how you're going to do better, and then report that. Go back to those metrics. Report, tweak, rinse, repeat. Leverage OWASP. Huge OWASP supporter. Real quick about OWASP. It's the Open Web Application Security Project. Obviously, a lot of their projects have to do with web application security. It's all open source. It's all free. Obviously, they're paid training at AppSec USA and EU, and those kind of things aren't. But the amount of resources that are out there. I'm an OWASP chapter leader, and I really like to leverage them whenever possible. Again, 140 projects that are out there. If anyone's ever used Zap, it's a free tool. A huge amount of support goes into that. But a lot of their projects are about teaching. They're about helping. Protection, detection, and SDLC is their main focus for those out of those 140 projects. So I know that I'm running out of time, and I really like the discussion that we had, and I've never done a green talk before, so I'm really interested in questions and feedback. Usually I'm up here showing you what I did with Burp and how I did that kind of stuff, and I never done a green talk, and I just want feedback or questions. And I think we got like 3 minutes or so. So.
Real quick remark, listening to the questions, you talk about metrics and scaling, and I'm wondering, you talk about gamification and all these other things, how you solve problems, Microsoft metrics, and gamification. But I'll tell you the metrics, I think maybe part of that needs to be for internal bugs to be problems.
That might.
A lot of the metrics out there, people go after it. Yeah, make it positive. That's it. I mentioned, don't let a bad score at the beginning in any way bother you. Let it become a thing.
You need the attaboys. You need them. Yeah. And if someone fails that first time and you are looking at their information and say, these are our top 10 web applications, these are what our metrics are for those applications, they're horrid. Okay, great. Next month or 3 months or next week or 6 months, report again. Show what you've done. Show how you've done it and really make the focus of, attaboy, good job. Like, this is how we're moving forward. And the metrics are obviously key to that.
So on the topic of metrics, one of the things that we do, again, I'm talking a lot about what we do in case anyone's interested, but we produce report cards for each team. We literally give them a grade, A through F, and there's probably 20 factors that go into that. What was their participation on the SDL? Did they show up to the meetings? Did they give us a threat model? Did they keep their threat model up to date? Do they actually act on the things that the threat model spits out and tells them, like, you have a flaw here, you've got a security thing you need to look at here? We also take the open bug that they have, and after they're out past the SLA, you start docking points. So you start out with 100 points, and you dock 10 points for a high, you dock 20 points for a critical. And that gets you down, that's a grade that goes into the overall team grade. And then we project them up on big projectors all around the trade floor so that you can see you have an F up against 5 other teams that have an A. And now you're asking yourself, how do I get an A? I want to have an A. I don't want to be embarrassed up here on the projector. So each part shame and metrics and real life help, and we'd be happy to share any of that information.
I've actually had such a question for the So, in the corporate sense, when it's a real application, it makes all sorts of sense and you walk through your day. On my blog, I guess it has enough traffic that's being discovered. I'm getting these emails like, you're vulnerable to a jacking account attack, and I'm going to, publish in 90 days unless you're like, I'm like, it's a static HTML page and there's no user account. Like, it is like.
That's a judgment call. That's risk accepted, and it's the battle of disclosure, right? You have this battle that's been going on for a long time between full disclosure, responsible disclosure, coordinated disclosure, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. For your static HTML and your blog, publish away, guy. I mean. Yeah, but it's risk. If there's no risk there, just, and again, it's something, you have a flat page and. Sure. But I had a blog for a long time, and I mean, it's the same thing with like having a comment section, right? I mean, my mom makes a ton of money working from home. Like, click this link, I mean, I don't care, so. That's it. That's all I got. I'll be hanging around. If anybody has any questions, comments, throwing stuff at me, I'll be out there.